Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the story of one of the world's wealthiest, yet honestly, most deeply paradoxical nations on Earth, Brunei Darussalam. At first glance, it's this quiet, modern Islamic state tucked away on the northern coast of Borneo. But seriously, don't let the peace and quiet fool you. The history here is a sweeping saga of ancient power, staggering decline, and a completely unexpected plot twist that literally rewrote its entire destiny.
Just think about this contrast for a second. Modern Brunei covers just over 5,700 square kilometers. That makes it slightly smaller than the U.S. state of Delaware. It's tiny. But flash back to the 15th century, and we're talking about a massive maritime empire that controlled the entire north of Borneo, the southern Philippines, and western Sulawesi. So how did this sprawling, influential empire shrink down to such a tiny footprint, yet somehow grow to become one of the absolute richest nations on the planet? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out today.
And the crucial point of their modern story really boils down to one staggering number: 90%. According to the research, 90% of Brunei's modern national revenue comes entirely from oil and natural gas. Imagine your entire household income relying completely on a single, totally unpredictable resource. That one fact is the powerful engine of their wealth today, but it also sets up a super high-stakes existential race against time that we'll explore in just a day.
To make sense of over 600 years of history, here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The Empire of Thousand Islands. 2. Colonialism and the oil boom. 3. The path to independence. 4. Islam, culture, and absolute rule. And finally, 5. The ticking clock of oil. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Empire of Thousand Islands. Let's look at the Golden Age.
The historical arc here is an absolute roller coaster. Back in the 14th century, as the vast Majapahit Empire retreated from Java, Brunei emerged as a highly strategic, flourishing trading center along the Malacca Straits, and they formally embraced Islam. By the 15th century, they hit their absolute zenith, spreading their influence far across the region. But then, as European powers, specifically the Spanish and later the British, showed up in the following centuries, they started aggressively chipping away at Brunei's territory. The empire shrunk so drastically that a severely weakened Brunei had to hide under the umbrella of a British protectorate in 1888 just to survive. They were nearly wiped off the map. That is, right up until 1929, when a literal plot twist erupted straight from the ground: a massive discovery of oil.
But, before that steep decline, at its absolute height, Brunei wasn't just a state. It was a revered, incredibly elegant Islamic monarchy. Under the rule of their fifth sultan, Sultan Bolkiah, it expanded to its greatest territorial extent. He was a renowned warrior, known in Arabic as the Conqueror, and he actually earned this magnificent title, Majesty of a Thousand Islands. The sources note an unbelievable level of prestige surrounding this empire. Neighboring pagans literally considered the Bruneians to be sages, and the rulers even claimed direct descent from the sun. It was a true golden age of immense regional power, culture, and oceanic trade wealth.
Section 2. Colonialism and the Oil Boom. A sudden massive transformation.
By the late 19th century, that glorious empire was just a shadow of its former self. Under heavy British control, indigenous customs were effectively abolished, imported foreign laws took their place, and even their local currency was completely scrapped. Brunei was impoverished and really struggling. But then came 1929. After nearly 20 years of dry holes and failed exploration, a literal geyser of wealth erupted from the ground. By 1932, drilling began in earnest, and wealth arrived almost overnight. Soaring oil output, especially in those boom years following World War II, utterly transformed Brunei's public spending. We're talking massive, unprecedented investments in health, education, and sweeping modern urban development. It was a complete 180.
Section 3. The path to independence. Some truly turbulent transitions.
Now, the path to sovereignty wasn't entirely smooth, even with all that newfound oil money pouring in. Nationalism was brewing strongly all across the region. While 1959 brought a major step forward with a new constitution and self-government, the political pressure cooker burst just a few years later. In 1962, deep tensions over the country's political future and a proposed merger with neighboring Malaysia sparked a full-blown armed rebellion by the Brunei People's Party. It was a severe crisis. It forced the Sultan to declare a state of emergency, and British troops were actually called in to intervene and quell the uprising. But after navigating all these immense historical complexities, Brunei eventually, and quite peacefully, regained its full independence on January 1st, 1984.
Section 4. Islam, culture, and absolute rule. Let's look at their modern governance.
Today, Brunei operates as an absolute monarchy. And I mean absolutely absolute. The Sultan wields complete top-down executive power. Just imagine for a second your head of state, your top military general, and your highest religious authority all being the exact same person. He's the prime minister, the minister of defense, and the head of Islam. The sources highlight that Brunei doesn't have that typical Western separation of church and state. Instead, they operate with a highly unique blend. They maintain a Western-style parliament, but it coexists right alongside Sharia courts, completely intertwining secular governance with religious life.
So, you might be wondering, how does a modern population enthusiastically accept this kind of absolute rule? Well, it's through a fascinating socio-political contract funded almost entirely by oil. Citizens enjoy a standard of living that easily rivals North America and Europe. We're talking free, compulsory education leading to nearly 100% literacy. There's extensive subsidized housing for 90% of the population. And get this, zero personal taxes. None. No income tax at all. All of this incredible material comfort is provided while simultaneously preserving a deeply traditional Malay-Islamic cultural identity that heavily influences everything from family structure to daily social etiquette.
Section 5. The ticking clock of oil. This is their most urgent challenge.
But right here is the ultimate vulnerability of this entire system. With 90% of the national revenue locked strictly into hydrocarbon resources, the nation is practically held hostage by the wild volatility of global market prices. A dip in global oil prices, that means a massive, immediate hit to the country's budget. But more importantly, it exposes them to the eventual, mathematically inevitable depletion of those natural resources. They can't last forever.
So, that brings us to the multi-billion-dollar question. What happens when the oil actually runs out? The sources estimate that without massive new discoveries, their oil reserves might dry up in just 20 years, and natural gas perhaps in 50 to 70 years. Think about that for a second. For a society entirely built on heavy government subsidies, zero personal taxes, and a massive public sector, 20 years is a terrifyingly short ticking clock. In the lifespan of a nation-state, that is literally just a blink of an eye.
Now, the government definitely knows this clock is ticking, and they certainly aren't sitting still. Enter National Vision 2035. This is a highly ambitious, three-pronged survival strategy designed to rapidly pivot the country away from oil. A major step involves a huge push into ecotourism. Because Brunei never had to aggressively log its land for revenue, over half of its forests remain completely untouched. They have 220,000 hectares of pristine mangrove swamps and ancient rainforests ready to attract global visitors. Another absolutely crucial step is shifting toward a knowledge-based economy. They're doubling down on their highly literate population by funneling massive investments into technology and advanced higher education.
But here's the catch. Brunei is caught in a really profound, almost tragic paradox as it races to reinvent its economic foundation. To successfully pivot to ecotourism, they absolutely must protect their breathtaking biodiversity, right? Yet, the very oil and gas industry they currently rely on to fund this entire transition frequently causes industrial pollution, gas leaks, and oil spills that directly threaten those exact coastal waters and pristine forests. So they have to protect their environment from the very thing that's currently keeping their economy afloat, and they have to do it all before the wells run dry. Talk about a tightrope walk.
As this explainer comes to a close, we're left with a truly profound question based on the evidence. Can the empire of 1,000 islands successfully reinvent itself once again? Look, Brunei has survived ancient tribal wars, the dramatic loss of a sprawling empire, and a brutal century of colonialism. But now, they face perhaps their quietest, yet most formidable adversary yet: time. Brunei's story is this fascinating microcosm of the global energy transition, and it's playing out in real time under an absolute monarchy. It's a powerful reminder of just how fleeting natural wealth can be. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning what you learn.